You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. In this show, we go beyond the campfire stories to bring you firsthand encounters from people who say they've seen something impossible, from backwoods trails and remote mountain haulers to quiet farms and crowded highways. The stories come from everywhere, and each one leaves us with more questions than answers. These are the voices of the people who've lived it, so settle in because today you'll hear another account that just might change the way you see the woods forever. So stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, we've got the privilege of talking to Greg from the Cryptozoology YouTube channel today, and that's with a K at the beginning. We'll have that linked in the show notes for sure. Greg is a documentary filmmaker from Pennsylvania. He's got a degree in electronic media and film, and he's also a member of the Screen Actors Guild, which is pretty cool. And he's been documenting his Bigfoot-related experiences all around the Mid-Atlantic region. I've been wanting to have Greg on the show for a while, and we're finally able to get him on the show today. So how are you doing today, Greg?
Oh, I'm great, Jeremiah. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely.
I guess I'll just start in West Virginia. That's kind of where actually I had my first experience a number of years ago. And this is actually before I was really even into cryptozoology or anything of the like. And I was visiting a friend out in, like I said, like the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia. And so I was coming back, and this deer cut in front of me, and it was really bizarre, just because, like, I've driven thousands of miles of back roads and never really had too many deer or wild turkey kind of cut out in front of me. And so the deer crosses the road, and then there's a predator following it, and it looked like it was like a dog, like it almost looked like a wild dog. And so I really kind of looked into this subject, and I know it's kind of crazy, but there's actually been hyena sightings like in North America. Mm-hmm. And I looked into this, and there's actually like hyena sightings in like West Virginia a lot, and because it didn't really fit into that category of being a dog or like a coyote or a wolf, and it just had these like large haunches, and it looked at me and then just continued to pursue the deer. And I had always had like some interest in the macabre, with like Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World and so on, watching that back in the 90s when I was a kid. And to have something like so weird like dash out in front of me, it really kind of changed my whole like paradigm for what's possible and what can exist. And so I did like a little bit of research, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's called the Shunka Warakin.
Yes.
And that's in that's in like, I believe, Montana, like out towards more like the Pacific Northwest. And it was known as like a predator that carried off dogs. Like that was kind of the nickname for it. Mm-hmm. And having seen this thing really kind of blew my mind, like that, like what is happening out here. And this was like maybe like 2008. And so I really didn't have like that developed of an interest in cryptozoology. And it wasn't really till like almost like the 2010s with like, finding Bigfoot and like things like that, and kind of Sasquatch, chronicles, like, kind of blowing up. I was like, oh, okay, this subject's like kind of interesting. And so I actually had some experiences in Maryland. I used to live in Maryland before I moved back to PA. And so in Maryland, there's the Goatman. That's kind of like, I live like near, like, kind of southern, near Annapolis, Maryland. And that's like a really, really famous, area for, sightings of the Goatman. And, really, I looked into the whole area, and actually that Governor's Bridge Road right now is actually shut down, and it's been like repeatedly shut down. And, first time, I believe it was like the bridge actually just got washed out. But the second time, like a tractor trailer, like was trying to get through there, like they rebuilt the bridge and everything. And it's still been shut down. So like all along there for like the past 10 or 15 years, where Goatman is like reportedly like the sightings, it's all been shut down for like almost like 2 decades, which is like super crazy. And so I have a friend, and so she actually kind of like lives over in that area, and she so we were like kind of camping outside, that type of thing, and like it started to rain, right? Like so it was like a normal night, and then like out of nowhere, this like large like sigh like came from the woods, like it was like someone like a giant, like almost like a bear or something, but there's no bears that are in this area in like southern Maryland. Like they've been like extirpated for like decades. And and so like I talked around to our neighbors, and the neighbors said that they saw like red eyes at 8 feet in the area. And like also that a neighbor said that there was a goose that actually got caught in her fence, and she heard these like large footsteps like bound across the area, and it grabbed that goose that was like stuck in the fence. And another person, she reported that there was, she felt like she was being like, there's like fishing spots down there, and she felt like she was being followed. And she had this really creepy feeling, like it was a real bizarre experience for her. And so that, in terms of that area, I feel like a lot of people are kind of like mislabeling, Goatman, and I feel like, like that's like a common occurrence, in terms of like the Jersey Devil and things like that. Like people just put like a different name, or like a local colloquialism for for Bigfoot. And I think in Maryland, like Bigfoot can really just be called like Goatman. Um, so I guess to keep on moving on, with my experiences in Maryland, there's a really amazing park. It's called Calvert Cliffs, and um, that's more in southern Maryland also. And my daughter and I we would visit there. This is still kind of like before I was really doing anything with like cryptozoology or anything of the like. And we were walking like through the park, and it was like a weird time because like most people had already gone back to school, so it was like early, like late fall, or I'm sorry, early fall, like late summer. And there was like a porta potty there, and it's a long walk. Like Calvert Cliffs is known for its like shark teeth, its fossils, so it's like a really unique area. And so we're walking back, and I had to stop and use. There was like a porta potty there, and they have that, usually like porta potties have those like spring loaded like doors, and it, as soon as like that happened, we had a response like across this bog of like two knocks, like two wood knocks, and it was just like the strangest thing that's like ever happened to us. And like even my daughter like looked at me and was like, what is that, right? It was just like really, kind of like bizarre experience. And I guess also with Maryland, also like there's also, I guess, in terms of cryptozoology in general, there's plenty of Chessie sightings like in the area. So Chessie is basically kind of like the Loch Ness monster of the Chesapeake Bay. And what I've discovered, like there's been local sightings at like Patapsco. I'm sorry, Fort Smallwood State Park, and that's on the Patapsco. That's on the Patapsco River, and then also more near the Magothy River, which is like kind of more southernly Maryland. And there's been reported sightings, not necessarily like on the eastern, or I'm sorry, the western shore of Maryland, but like further south, like more towards like the Potomac, and of like baby, like kind of like estuary baby Chessie sightings. which is really like really wild. Just thinking that like, these things are, developing like in, like a estuary somewhere of, of America, of the United States. So that's just basically my time in Maryland and what I saw. And there's also been report sightings like near Antietam, and I've been thinking about going out there just to kind of explore, what's kind of the situation out there. I guess moving on to like Pennsylvania. I mean, I feel like PA is just this large, crazy tract of land with it basically has like 4 million acres of like public land that are really that gets really wild out there. And it's sometimes when you're in like Sproul State Forest and Susquehannock State Forest, like it's not like you're standing on a mountain by yourself. You're standing basically like on like a mountain ridge by yourself. And so basically, having originally been from PA, growing up here, that area kind of like north of like State College, PA, was always just kind of like a mystery to me. And in addition to, basically there's 2.2 million acres of state forests in PA. There's about 1.5 million acres of game lands, and there's 300,000 acres of state parks, and then 500,000 acres for the Allegheny National Forest. So you're talking about almost like 4 million acres that people can really get lost in, and it's almost basically my research area is almost basically the size of Connecticut, with the population of like maybe 50,000 people or something. I mean, really, nobody lives like in these areas. It's probably even less than that. And basically with the state game lands in Pennsylvania, I mean, the hunting season's like so small that for three quarters of the year, basically these like state game lands are just completely like unoccupied. And I've learned that like a lot of, I mean, even more recently, there's been sightings out of that area near State College. I believe it's the state game lands, like 333, and they, there's been report sightings of a Bigfoot near a fish estuary. So basically, I guess the past maybe 2 years or so, really since 2023, that's when I really kind of got my channel together, because I was kind of getting headaches from watching people on YouTube use their camera phone to make like cryptozoology videos, and I thought I could kind of just give it a little bit more of a kind of finished product. So I guess really where I started was in this little town called Cross Forks, PA. So Cross Forks, PA, that's near the Hammersley Wild area, which is like basically the largest area in PA that has no roads. So it's about like 50 square miles of no roads that you can, just really enjoy yourself, and kind of, these real backcountry trails that, you're not really interrupted in. And, I mean, there's timber, rattlesnakes. And also in this area, back in I think it was the 1920s, after the last woodland elk was actually shot in PA, they were imported from Colorado. So there's actually a herd of like 1,400 elk in north central PA. And, so a lot of them go to like these different wild areas that, are not particularly populated, or don't have many visitors to. And so because I went to the Hammersley Wild area, it was just a good experience, and kind of like, learning how to make like a proper narrative. Like, I mean, the first couple of videos I made, I literally got like lost in the woods, and like was still trying to get my bearings. And I feel like now I have a little bit more of a better understanding of, how to, kind of shoot a video, but not get lost. So, so since I was in Sproul and State Forest, there's these areas, they're, like I said, they're really super rural. PA is the only state, PA is number 3 in terms of public land size. So only behind like Alaska and California. So, really, when you go out to these areas, it's not even necessarily that you're just kind of worrying about like being within, the public state game lands or things like that, because there's a lot of, private clubs up there too, which account for like large swaths of area. And really, I guess, my most, it's called Ricketts Glen. That's one of my most famous videos, and it's where I kind of started, with my channel. And basically, I went to like the visitor center because I was going to camp in the park that night, and I see this like magnet hanging up that says that there's Bigfoot might actually find you or something at Ricketts Glen State Park. So it's like there's like a PA state government magnet that approves that like Bigfoot exists. So I asked the visitor center lady there, and she said that like there had been a reported Sasquatch nest in Ricketts Glen. And I basically, it was like almost like a 4-mile trek through there, and I saw like kind of like a low lying like tree that had like kind of like a, I don't know, like a reinforced like lower limb, but nothing I saw that kind of really said that there was like a nest in the area. But it just really, I just found it really curious that like there was like a state sponsored like magnet that said you might be looking for Bigfoot at Ricketts Glen State Park, and that just really blew my mind. And so I've also been to it's called like World's End State Park, which is that's also in North Central PA, and there were there have been sightings in the area, but I think the crazy part about that area is that there's like it's almost like a plateau to it, and unfortunately, like I haven't gotten a drone yet, which I need to do. And I wish at the time I had a drone, because like this plateau that's like above, where, most of the people are, that really, and like anything could be hiding up there. And it kind of has almost like these like cliff edges to it. And it's basically where like kind of the Susquehanna River, kind of bled in through the Allegheny Plateau. And, yes, which is, so it's really difficult to climb up these cliffs. And I'm definitely, next time I go there, I'm going to definitely have a drone to like try and get up into these areas. And I guess my other video that I thought kind of piqued, the public's interest was I came across these like ice footprints at the PA Grand area. And it was just so odd, because it was like late December, and I don't know if a bear would still be like even up, because like these prints, just like you could see the toes, and like it just, even if it was like a black bear double step, like I don't know if it could be possible for it to be like as big as it was. So it's like I said, it's in my catalog. It's a catalog of video if people want to check it out.
Can I ask for clarification for something for a minute? That happened in Pine
sure,
Creek Gorge, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's called the Barber Rocks Trail. It's on the north end of the park there. And so I shot a video there, but I shot there's another park on like more the south end, and that was, I had a little bit of like a smell in that area. And this, like I said, this was like 2023, around Christmas time. There's absolutely nobody in the park. It's called Colton Point State Park. That's the more southerly state park.
Okay.
in the Pine Creek, in the PA Grand Canyon area. And
Gotcha.
but the footprint was really, of course, I had just gotten a new camera, and it has like a built-in gimbal with it. and to like kind of stabilize the image. And so I was still like learning how to like properly like, film downwards with it, because it tries to like stay to like the horizon with gimbals, just to try and like level out the. But I got most of the of the image of the footprint. And there was about like it was almost like a 4 foot um, span between the footprints, and they were 16 inches long, and then about like I think it was about like 5 or 6 inches wide. So, and I know like black bears in north central PA they've actually shot black bears that are 800 pounds. So like you have to, which are basically the size of grizzly bears.
Right.
So you have to be real careful with like understanding, kind of what you're seeing. And I was actually I was blessed enough to actually communicate with Dr. Jeff Meldrum before he passed, about the ice footprint. And I sent him the images, and he always told me to caution, err on the side of caution. And unfortunately, like I didn't really have I didn't make a cast of it. Like I didn't have any plaster of Paris, or I was actually trying to get into like possibly having like a 3D like image scanner for things, but I'm still working on that right now. But at least I had my tape measure with me to like kind of properly like properly measure things out, just because like on camera, like you have to present some type of like standard, with like a tape measure, to really like kind of be like a litmus test for like what the size of something is. You can't, because the human eye is like so good at like auto capturing things, that like people, one thing people don't realize with film is that and that's why I shoot most of my stuff during the daytime, just because, I mean, if you look at like the Paul Freeman, you look at the Patterson Gimlin films, like they were all both during the daytime. So it's like, I feel like if there's ever going to be like another, like any footage of this thing, it's going to be during the daytime, because like I know there's thermals out there, but like I feel like having a daytime sighting with that proper resolution to actually like see the creature, I think that'll hopefully lend more credence to like to it being like a real animal that hopefully gets recognized. Um, so having gone from like Ricketts Glen, I'm sorry, the PA Grand Canyon, I've also been to, like I said, North Central PA, which has the Susquehannock State Forest and the Sproul State Forest, which kind of like merge into like their own like national forest up there. And so basically, I would go to like old like hunting lodges, just to like speak to like the locals, just see if there's any like just anything, and just I'd be like, oh, like, because I would kind of stick out like a sore thumb. I'm not really like a big kind of hunting guy, and like I'm not really wearing camo or anything. And I respect hunters. I love hunters. They're wonderful. They're the only people I see when I'm looking for Bigfoot. And so I just kind of like shoot to shoot with them, and they would always tell me, I had a bartender who was telling me these experiences her husband was having, and it's down near like Snowshoe, PA. So we're approaching like these areas that on the BFR has been listing. There was the recently there's the uh, you know Sasquatch that crossed Route 80 there. I think it was mile marker around like 170.
Mm-hmm.
And I had shot a video there at it's called Bald Eagle State Park, and that area like is like super rural. Like there's actually in town near there. There's a local barbecue place that's called like uh, Bigfoot Blazing Barbecue. So like the whole area has like this like local culture of like something kind of being in the area. And so her husband was just telling me about how he had seen something while he was hunting, got freaked out and left. And then another time, like it was like later at night, and because there's so many like Thunderbird sightings like in this north central part of PA, that they had also come across, like it was a large bird, and it was at dusk, and like it completely freaked this hunter out. So I really, and I've also read like plenty of books. There's it's called like the Pennsylvania Stories and More Pennsylvania Stories by, I believe his name is Henry Shoemaker. I mean, this was written in like the 1920s or so, but it has a lot of like listed events, with different events happening, in like the Sproul State Forest and the Susquehannock State Forest in terms of Thunderbirds. So I mean, there's just, like I said, it's such like a wild and untamed area that like, you could hide a dinosaur up there and nobody would know. And so basically, when I was shooting my video for Bigfoot near Snowshoe, I came across there was like this old like abandoned, like it was like a railway trail, and like this like our like 4x4 quad club had like kind of commandeered it but not fully, and like the bridge was out, like if you go to Google Maps, like Google Maps like says like it's okay, and it's not okay, like the bridge is completely like half demolished. And so I'm traveling down, path on this old abandoned like quad club trail, and I see these like large like footprints. It's under my video called Sasquatch Cult, and I came across these like weird like runic, like somebody created these like weird runic tablet things on the side of the road. I was really like, thank God I have like bear spray when I go out, because like it's I was in this like, it was almost like a valley, like a little like valley. So if like anybody was gonna like ambush me, like this was like the place to do it. And so I'm like, kind of like walking down this like trail, like all by myself, and I come across these like weird, like runic symbol things. I saw that, just kept on going. But like across the trail, because it had like lightly snowed, were these like, like 16-inch like footprints dashing across the trail. So like, and like I said, it was like, I think it was early January. So with it being like a bear, I don't know, like I don't know if a bear is going to be out in early January, and there were deer in the area. So it was a very like, humbling experience, just because, like I said, I was in an area that I was actually using snowshoes, because like the area like had gotten so kind of rough, and it was like the only way that I could really hopefully get back to get back to my car, from where this area was. Um, yeah, and like I said, that area is called like Renovo, PA, which is it's in the dead middle of like nowhere. And if you go to like, it's called like if you go from like Lock Haven to like Emporium off of, like route, I believe it's 120 there, like Renovo's like in the center of it. And it, like when you go to this town, it's just like it's almost like a ghost town. It's like really abandoned over the years. And so in addition to like, the Bigfoot sightings and like Thunderbird sightings, I also wanted to like, I also try and do like classical like extinct species. And so I'm not sure if you're familiar with like, the Penn State like football team, the Nittany Lions.
Absolutely.
Well, they actually get their name from these like, theoretical like mountain lions that existed, in that area of PA, that potentially, because all these species were all like extirpated. The like I said, the woodland elk, the bison. There was woodland bison. There were passenger pigeon, um, flocks of like 3 or 4 billion that used to blot out the sun like during the daytime, and we hunted them all to extinction. And because people found the meat like the of the passenger pigeon there to be tasty, so that's one of the reasons that was basically killed to extinction. And so, because the Nittany lions kind of are in that area in like Sproul State Forest, I followed this like old, it was called like the Panther Tower, the Panther Trail through there. And basically there used to be like a lot of fire towers in PA, and a lot of them have been actually just like taken down. And they had these names from like maybe 50, 60, 70 years ago, because I potentially like even 100 years ago there was still mountain lions in PA. And I mean, even up until recently, there was the mountain lion that I believe went from like, I think it was like North Dakota to Connecticut. So my theory was like, did this mountain lion even did it kind of come through north central PA to get to Connecticut? And I didn't see any signs of mountain lions, but I swear, whenever I'm looking for like Thunderbirds or mountain lions, like I always come across like weird like Bigfoot stuff. Like the trail that I had to kind of go through, it was like all crashed in. Like there looked like something had thrown down like and put X's on the trail. So I didn't like, that was more like kind of the western part of this trail. And I just headed east because that's kind of, I was looking for the Panther Tower in this. And so continually, even while I'm like still looking for other species, like like Bigfoot still kind of sticks his foot in there. And like still there's still weird signs that kind of can kind of exist here and there. I've also been to, so there used to be like I believe it was like an old like nuclear or missile testing range in north central PA, and it's called the Hyena Wild Area. And so if you look at a map of PA, you can even see it on Google Maps. There's a perfect circle like in central PA of like, I guess the state bought back the land like from this like nuclear facility. And it's just so bizarre. And so there was like in 1985 there was like a terrible tornado that actually like blew through this area. And it's just so bizarre, like just looking on a map and just seeing like maps are usually just more natural, but seeing like an actual like circle like on in the PA like forest system, you're just like, what is going on? And so that area, the Kahana Wild area, I've been through there, and there's some trails that are pretty cool in terms of being wild. And a lot in that area, that's where there's a lot of like elk viewing areas. And so while I was shooting one of my videos, I it was like a terrible windy day. It was snowy out. Like I was the only person like at these like elk viewing areas. And they're basically like reclaimed land the state bought just because they were strip mined. And so they reclaimed the land, and now elk are able to like actually like live and kind of thrive on this. But during the wintertime, of course, most animals kind of go into the trees and start even eating like some type of sticks and brushes and that type of thing. But when I was there was like so I shut my door, and then like a couple seconds later I heard like a wood knock in the valley in the distance. It was just like, it just blew my mind, like that, like like I don't even think I had the camera running at that time. And I feel like I've had other experiences like that where and I'm conscious of it now, but like when I first go to the area, like I always turn my camera on before like I shut my door, because I've definitely had like some responses like whenever I close my door. I guess I slam my door kind of hard, and I've heard wood knocks definitely in the distance. I guess another example is that there's so also in north central PA, it's called the Kettle Creek State Park, and that is like it's a phenomenal. It's one of the tributaries to the Susquehanna River. And in addition to like the elk, the buffalo, and the passenger pigeons, before the dams were erected throughout the state, harbor seals actually used to like to swim like all the way really into like deep north central PA, and so they were given the nickname the Kettle Creek Monster. So I was just kind of filming that video, and I was going to get some B-roll because I have like another camera too. It's more of like a long distance camera, and like once again I just like I shut my door. I think I was like filming. I was just filming birds. There were some really beautiful ducks that were on the creek there, and like I shut my door, and then off in the distance I heard like a wood knock, and like for me the question is like if it's a hunter like it's not an echo because it happens usually too long afterwards, and like why would a hunter be like firing off a gun like in response to my like door slamming. So like that's kind of my only explanation for it in that area. um so I guess moving on to even more places, there's also the like Cinemahoning like state park. I know like a lot of like those the Bigfoot Society guys, like they kind of go up into that area, and I've been in that area too. Like I actually shot a video that was actually on top of the dam. And a lot of these like parks, it's like they're really like like they're really forgotten. Near like Austin, PA, there's like an old dam that like blew out. So it looks like you go there, and it almost looks like it's like Lord of the Rings, and you're like like there's nobody else around. You have these like giant like earthworks projects, and you're just kind of like you can literally walk on this dam, and just really beautiful clear water, and no pollution in this area. um but I guess also but I guess going back to like the state game lands, like so state there was that sighting at that fish estuary, which I believe was like state game lands like 333, and that was like in March of like this past year. And um I'd actually shot like a video like earlier, almost 2 years ago, where there had been like previous also other Bigfoot crossings off the I-80 corridor. So basically I feel like north of like in PA, like north of like the I-80 corridor, like it can really get it's really wild, right? And super unpopulated. And for me it's like my question is, are these creatures, are they do they want do they want the attention? Do they want um do they want to be near us? So I still haven't really figured that out. And in this area, like if near the Bald Eagle like state park and state game lands 333, you kind of go between you know like mountains that are forested, and then like farms in the valleys, and then mountains in the forest, and then like farms in the valleys. And so it's like it would be like perfect terrain for an animal to like kind of hide at night in the woods, or hide during the day during the woods, and then come down at night to like to steal food from like a local farmer. And so there's definitely like this like it's definitely this like Goldilocks zone of like, hey, there's like potentially like a food source for these creatures, and they have like a place to hide. um I guess going further south, like I've also been to like, it's called Micho State Park, and like that's weird because I think it's actually like the northern terminus of like almost the Blue Ridge Mountains. So, and like it's weird because like outside of it, like it's not, there's really no like there's no mountains, so it's like this little island in the sky. And there's been like lots of I shot one of my first videos there, and that was like one of like a really special spot. um I guess in terms of like more areas in PA, I've also been to like the Delaware State Forest, and that's kind of where like there's Promised Land State Park out there. There's also it's called like Egypt Meadows, and like Egypt Meadows is like kind of crazy because it's like you really like, I have a Garmin, I have like GPS, like search and rescue insurance, just because like when you're going down these trails like by yourself, like you have to just kind of be prepared for the worst. And it's not like like a more like, kind of urban park where there's going to be more people. Some of these like, really kind of out there, like, state parks, like they're really like in the middle of like almost nowhere, right? And like they're very sparsely populated with other hikers. And actually, like I actually, like, it's one of the few times I've gotten lost on a trail and actually turned back because it was getting near dusk, and I was just like there's no point in like getting lost in the woods at nighttime and something happening to you. Um, so I think that's like a pretty good kind of examination of like where I've been in PA, and I guess moving on to so I've been to a lot of spots in New Jersey as well. So basically, one of my first videos I ever shot was the Jersey Devil, of course, right? And so like Ocean Spray, that's like the cranberry company. They have like a lot of abandoned like cranberry bogs that are in these areas, and so I was shooting my video, and I saw this like large, extremely large bird like kind of fleeing in the distance. It was definitely like a crane. It was even like bigger than like a heron. And so I did like a little bit of a research deep dive into the area. And so like South Jersey, like the Pine Barrens, they have they have the sandhill crane, which actually migrates through there. But even like weirder and like more recent times, like in the 90s, there was a farmer like in upstate New York who actually imported these. They're called Eurasian gray cranes, and they got loose, and they somehow, like, I guess, found the sandhill crane population and started like intermingling with them. So actually, like it's extremely. I mean, with my mind's eye, like I saw it quite well, but with the camera I was using at the time, it didn't like. You can kind of see it, but it's like extremely in the distance. So my theory on the Jersey Devil is that basically back in colonial times when people were first coming to this country, they were coming across like sandhill cranes, and they mistook it for the Jersey Devil. And I know it's kind of controversial, and people will like kind of really put the paranormal side to things, but like I mean, the sandhill cranes, like they avoid humanity like the plague. And like I was like, I mean, I was maybe a quarter mile away from this thing, and it took off. And with these drained bogs, it's like you go in there, and I also shot another. So I shot there was in the same kind of area. It was called, like, I think it was like Brendan T. Byrne State Forest, which is part of the Pine Barrens. There was a reported sighting of Bigfoot by the side of the road. Some person saw like a juvenile Bigfoot. And so it was one of my early videos, and I definitely I captured some type of footprint, and it looked like it treaded into the bogs, like in the swamps there. So like because I feel like if these things are just if Bigfoot's like avoiding us, they're going to go to like the most nasty places they can to avoid us. And funny enough, like I was looking at the Google comments for like this area where I saw these like footprints, and like just some like local yokel was like, he was like, this is where this is where Bigfoot hangs out. So my mind was like completely blown, and that's not my. So basically, moving more like towards the coast, there've actually been like Bigfoot sightings like at the Jersey Shore, and I feel like this potentially maybe could be real, because during like the wintertime, like there's nobody in some of these towns. Like everybody kind of moves back to like Philly or New York for the winter. And so like I just had this like funny thought of of a Bigfoot like treading through some like Jersey beach town, like with like nobody around. And so I went to it's called Double Trouble State Park. And so this basically, like underneath the New Jersey Pine Barrens, is like one of the largest like reservoirs in the world for like water. So it's not even like so it's basically like these aquifers that are underground that are creating these like rivers through these like state parks, like in the Pine Barrens. And it's like this really weird looking like uh tea colored like kind of water to it. And I think that's actually like where i I think I years prior, like I think I wrote into you about a swamp dog in South Jersey,
Oh yeah.
and like the area, yeah, and the area that he was at. And so I kind of like I invested this area just to kind of see if there's any like validity to it. And like you go back like in some of these like like river areas, and it's really really like really Jurassic back there. There's like sometimes there's like Spanish moss like hanging on the trees and things like that. Like it's real real super wild area. And so I definitely I definitely could see how like there, and especially in South Jersey, there could be some type of like anything. But I guess starting to go a little bit further north, like through it's called the Gateway National Recreation Area at Sandy Hook. And like what people just don't realize, like even like harbor seals like really they winter like in like at the Jersey Shore. And I just thought it was like a funny idea of like I know it's not particularly a cryptid, but like just I feel like it could kind of blow people's minds just to like because I guess we have this like idea of like seals, at least on the East Coast, being like near like Nova Scotia or Greenland or something. So it's just like fun knowing that like these kind of hit down here in the Mid-Atlantic, we can go see seals. It's like the dead of winter too. It's usually like January or February. And but so I was going to like kind of investigating the area a little bit more. And there's definitely been a lot of like sea creatures, unexplained sea creatures in that Sandy Hook Bay area. And so there's a situation where there was these fish, not only fishermen, but even just locals who they keep on reporting seeing a sea monster with it has like a bulldog face to it. And so it's like really weird that like specifically, people just keep on bringing up this like kind of this sea creature that has this like same face every single time. And I just found that interesting, just with having like the harbor seals in that area. But if you go further north, like in New Jersey, like and getting towards almost the New York line, basically during the ice ages, the ice sheets, basically the southern terminus was like near like North Jersey and southern New York. So what happened was like all that like earth and rocks and soils that were when they were ground and pushed, they most of them are actually pushed to like this area. So you have like a lot of areas with all these like I think they're called like radical boulders, that are just kind of deposited because it was where like like I said the ice sheets had stopped. So I know David Paulides has the a lot of times when he has occurrences of people like missing, it's around like boulder like granite boulders and things like that. And it's just funny that this these areas in like North Jersey and like southern New York have all these like free radical boulders that people potentially or boulder fields that people potentially like have Bigfoot sightings. And yeah, I mean if you go to North Jersey, like you can actually just look it up on Google. It's called, just type in Bigfoot sculpture. And so I don't even I think I just came across it randomly. So there's in near like I think it's called the Wanacue Reservoir. There's a trail out there. It's called the Sculpture Trail. And so I'm walking around, and it's where I shot one of my videos. And basically, like this Bigfoot sculpture is atop this cave. And so there was another situation where like I definitely have to get a drone because when I was walking like near this cave, like I definitely like I was like above the cave, like where the Bigfoot sculpture was, and this terrible smell was like emanating from it. And like something was in there, and like I just did not want to like just check it out and like see what was going on. um I guess with with North Jersey, like um, if you're, I feel like if you're really serious about like trying to find like Bigfoot in that area, the basically from like the Delaware Gap National Recreation forest to like High Point State Park. It's all part of like it's called the Kittatinny like mountain range, and like I feel like in terms of like potentially where these creatures have been pushed to in New Jersey, because I shot a video. It was like where these diners were at this like restaurant that was like it's a really like rural kind of like mountain kind of restaurant thing, and they're sitting there and they see these like two Bigfoot like kind of like cross the field, and like and these couples are just sitting there and they're like looking at each other like, are you seeing that? Like these people, they're strangers. They're like, are you seeing that? And then like they're both looking at each other like, oh my god, like what is this, right? So I shot a video out that way, and it's the only time I ever filmed the like the little baby bear cubs, which was like just fun to finally see a bear in the wild, and yeah, so that area through the Delaware Gap National Recreation Area to High Point State Park, that's kind of like where like the big red eye is known, and that's like really famous for sightings. I tried to like mimic. There was a sighting there where I believe it was so I guess like in PA and New Jersey, there's natural gas lines that run like from fracking, and like so they almost serve as like power lines, and there's been like a lot of like reported sightings near gas lines, gas line clearings. And so there was a gentleman who was like riding a bicycle, and I just wanted to mimic that, so I just like strapped a camera like onto my bike, and was riding along, and I didn't have any experiences there, but I did have. So I was in, it's called Stokes State Forest, which is just south of High Point State Park, and more recently I finally started doing wood knocks because it like saves me a lot of walking, saves me a lot of like I feel like if there's any way of like maybe tricking the species into responding, like I feel like you know like a wood knock is kind of anonymous, whereas like if you're doing like a Bigfoot howl, it like they can I feel like they can like understand the difference in your vocal cords. And so I did like a just one or two knocks, and I had this like it was there's no one else in this forest. Like I always try and go to like state parks on like a Tuesday or like a Wednesday when there's like nobody there. I saw like one or two cars further down, which these fishermen, and I had just this like I don't know how to describe it, but it was like a hellish scream that came through like the forest, and it just sounded so like just so unnatural, and like just no just it just didn't seem like something like a human could produce. And then also when I was in Delaware Gap National Recreation area a little bit further south, that's when I've come like I went there. It was like God, it was like maybe March or April, and it just snowed, and so not too many people were there. And I think I have like kind of like snowshoes just to kind of hike through kind of snowy areas. And I came across like there was someone had discarded their pants there, like at like 1,500 feet. Like it was just real like real scary stuff come across. I was done when I saw that. I just came back down because especially like during more like winter months when there's nobody up there. I mean, it can it's one of those things where when you go in the woods, like you have to you just have to have your wits about you, and it was really disturbing to find that. um I found even also in National Gap Recreation Area, this is actually like on the PA side. So it's the Delaware Gap National Recreation Area. It's in PA and New Jersey, and it kind of straddles the northern part of the Delaware River there. And like I came across like it was like it was like April or something, and like something had killed and gutted a deer like off the trail. I mean, there was a report sighting like along that area like years ago. Like truckers like used to like see uh, Bigfoot like by the side of the road at nighttime, like a family of Bigfoot. So I definitely had to go to that area and try and check that out. Uh, New Jersey's weird because it has like a lot of these like county and like state parks that they're really like ginormous. Like there's the Malin Dickerson Park, and I had a response back to a wood knock there, and it's not even like a state park, but I believe it's actually a county park, and so it's really like unvisited, and it's near the Picatinny Arsenal where all the I believe it was all like the drone sightings were like like last year, and like so it's like a real like really weird area, and so I actually had I had a response like to a wood knock in the area, and I remember like there was definitely like an area that was like it was more like a brush kind of area that's like further out, and like I always try and like be apprehensive in those areas because if there's a bear, if it's like April or whatever, late March. I think the bears I saw like at near where that saying was at that restaurant. That was I saw there was actually it was like a mama bear with like two cubs, and this was like early March. So bears were even getting out like in early March, like in this area. I guess it just has to do with a lot with like the temperature and if it's kind of like safe to get out. Um, and I guess another real at least in New Jersey, another area that's gotten like really like crazy in terms of wildness area. It's called like the Ramapo Valley, and it's like a large once again it's like basically two large county parks that combine to like almost like 5 or 10,000 acres, and there's been sightings up that way, where someone's driving in a car, and they've had sightings in that area. I believe it along like Skyline Drive, but yeah, even going out there, it's like you realize you're like, oh man, like I'm in these areas, and like you can see like the New York skyline sometimes, from some of these mountains, and yeah, it just makes you realize like how quickly things get rural, like in some of these areas. Um, and I guess just trying to get to New York. So New York, basically, God, was it's called? So basically, just across the line, it's called Harriman State Park, and there's been like it's called like it's like Seven Lakes Drive. Like it's like Sebago Lake, all those types of areas through there, and there's been like multiple like sightings through that area, and there's so many boulder fields, and like I totally understood how like somebody could come across some type of creature in this area just because it gets like so wild, and really like I said, nobody's out in these areas. Going a little bit further north, I went to it's called Lake Minnewaska State Park, and so basically it's not really a part of the Catskills. It's kind of its own thing, and there's these ice caverns there, and there was a sighting like at these ice caverns like during. I feel like a lot of this stuff is just like happening during like the middle of like winter in these areas. So it's like or my theory is like, are they like are Bigfoot like migrating from like the Adirondacks down to the Catskills like during the winter just to like avoid like the extreme like cold temperatures? Like that's kind of my theory for New York. But yeah, I mean like even just like when you look out into these valleys, it's like PA. It's like endless. The Catskills and the Adirondacks have that same feeling of like North Central PA where there's this level of wildness. I guess just a quick note about like PA, North Central PA. Like a lot of these like state forests that became state forests was basically because all the railroad industry they destroyed like a lot of these forests back in the early part of the 20th century, and so the state bought back these lands at penny on a dollar, and now 125 years later, a lot of these forests have grown back, and yeah, I think it's kind of the same situation up there near the Catskills, and I started shooting some videos like near the Catskills, and basically like the Catskills is really the watershed for New York City. So you go to these like different reservoirs up there, and you'll see like New York City police officers like guarding these like reservoirs, and you're like 200 miles away from New York. And so I went to the Pacton Reservoir. There's like I think it's called like the Shavertown grill or trail, and like a lot of like the Catskills were known for like tanning products because like tanning leather products because the hemlock trees produce the tannin. So there's like a lot of abandoned towns that like used to be just like tanneries. And so when I was going up this trail, like like once again I'm alone on a trail by myself, and like this like stick just comes like flying through the forest. Not a rock, it was like a branch, like something through a branch. And I just headed out because it was crazy. um I guess going a little bit further north, there's actually a legend in the Catskills of the Grahamsville gorilla, and that was like basically just known as like an escaped primate. They think like I said, they think it's more of like a of like a mountain gorilla, but from like a zoo or from a was a circus train. But basically with like the slide mountain wilderness up there, like you could really like it's I think the Catskills are also they're also like 500,000 acres, just kind of like the Allegheny National Forest. And it's real like my kind of my target area for the area is actually like near, it's called Gilboa. And there's a little park there called Minekill State Park. And one thing I've been discovering is that like I've been watching a lot of times I'll watch like a YouTube video. And it's more of just like a hiking video just to like kind of like just like get a semblance of the terrain kind of. And like so there was this one gentleman who was hiking, and he was like oh my god, like like I've seen like hiking videos that show like all the signs of like a classic like Bigfoot like encounter, like if it's stalking people. And these people have nothing to do with like Bigfoot. They're just like these hiking trail videos. And it really always blows my mind. And um so I went to, it's called Minekill State Park, and there's plenty of trails, plenty of things on that level for really getting lost. And like I said, also with the Slide Mountain Wilderness, it's like the Catskills actually get up to like 4,000 feet. So it's a really rugged like and wild area for being on the East Coast. And I also went to the New York Bigfoot conference, which was in October. And when I was up there, like I shot a video for just like the southern terminus of the Adirondacks. And I feel like there's other people that kind of cover the Adirondacks because like I think you can fit the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, like Glacier and like Yosemite all in it. It's just such a vast area, So it's like I feel like I'm okay with like where I'm at, like more like southernly in the Mid Atlantic. And and at the Bigfoot conference, I saw like it was incredible, like just meeting like usually there's like I know like the Ohio Bigfoot conference has like 30,000 people or something, but this one there was only like 100 people there. And like I met like Ken Gerhardt, Cliff Barrickman, Renee Holland, Dr. Sarmiento, Adam Davies, like and guys from like Squatchachusetts. So it was like a real surreal experience like at this conference where there was only like 100 people. And I had to pinch myself, just kind of being in that crowd. And but I think I realized from that experience, maybe the Adirondacks they're kind of like the southern Adirondacks. That's like my like Saratoga Springs. That's like my northern terminus for where I kind of do Sasquatch hunting. And I also did a I also did a video in Long Island too, because there had been like sightings of Bigfoot in like, you know, I think it's like a Walt Whitman State Park, but I was a little bit further north near like it's called Sagamore Hill, which is like I think it was like Teddy Roosevelt's like summer home.
Correct.
And just yeah, and just being in that area, like you know, you see like you know the natural resources that are there, like the abundance of food, and you know it's really mind blowing. And yeah, so that's kind of that's been my experiences, and I believe I'm going to be heading to. I'm finally going to shoot a video at Allegheny National Forest soon enough because it's actually legal to it's legal to film in national parks now. So yeah, you don't need like a film permit anymore. And I'm actually looking to go to also near Allegheny. It's called Cook's Forest, and that's Northwest PA. It's near like the Forest County Bigfoot Festival, and Cook's Forest has a like it actually was an area where two railroad companies couldn't decide like who owned the area. So it's like one of the original growth forests like still left in PA. So that's been my past couple of years, and it's been quite a journey to just really come close to something that potentially like no people may not have any like evidence or belief in. And I just like the idea of like potentially finding some type of evidence for not only just like Bigfoot but like any type of cryptozoological species that like might still exist.
It really is a fascinating channel in the fact that the reason I love it is that you do hit a lot of the places you go to. I've actually had interviews in those areas. So, we talked about, you went and checked out Swamp Dog's area. Listeners that have been around for a while will remember Swamp Dog from New Jersey, but also I've had plenty of interviews that have, talked about Misha State Forest, Gilboa a few times. So that area has a lot of stuff.
Really crazy up there. Yeah.
So in the last few minutes we have, I actually wanted to talk to you. So when you went up to Gilboa, from your perspective, I'm sure you've heard a few of the encounters and sightings in that area. Is that a pretty squatchy area up there in Gilboa?
Yeah, and I say that because literally when I was at the Kill State Park, which is right in Gilboa there, there was no one in the park. There wasn't even the park ranger wasn't even in the park, and like I was literally the only person there, and a flock or whatever it is, a gaggle of turkeys cut me off in the parking lot, which just shows you like how like crazy and rural. Like I mean, turkeys are like one time I was going back from like I think it was the Pipocton Reservoir, and I took another experience is just like taking a lot of these old logging roads and just like waiting just to go over a cliff, because they're just so like rickety, and like just seeing like having a like a little flock of turkeys cut me off in the state park. And when I was there I also saw a bobcat by the side of the road. So it just shows you like I mean these are species that like avoid like people at all costs. So you're you're really like you're really out in the middle of nowhere, and there's just like there's just not even like even outside of just like the state parks, like if you're just like in the area, just as like a like living in there, like it's all wooded, it's all thick woods, it's like a jungle like when you go to these areas.
Some wild stuff. Do you have any ideas for places you want to hit in the future?
Yeah, so I like I said, I'm definitely going to go to the like Allegheny National I'm going to go to the it's called like the Cook Forest Bigfoot Festival in Marionville, PA. And or, I'm sorry, don't know, it's just Forest County Bigfoot Festival. It's been there a couple years, and now that like I'm able to film like an Allegheny reservoir. I'm going to go to that area, and there's a lot of sightings around like the reservoir there. So that's kind of like, I always try and go near like bodies of water, just because, I mean, I feel like that's like the most, kind of prominent area where these creatures might be. And then, while I'm there, I'm also going to go to the old growth forest that's there. I have another place. There's a basically like where I shot my Thunderbird and like the was it like the snowshoe videos. It's like a little park called Black Moshannon State Park. So I'm gonna be filming a video there pretty soon. And it's these areas are just wild. There's nobody out there, and especially with the state game lands, like it gets really hairy just because 3/4 of the year, like there's PA has like the 1.5 million acres of state game land, and like basically for 3/4 of the year, really nobody cares, or they're primarily for recreation use. They're not for hunting use. So it's not like they're just strictly for hunting. It can also be for plenty of trails. Like one of the state game lands has it's like has like tens of thousands of acres. So it's real. Like if like you could hide a dinosaur like in these areas, and like nobody would ever know.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so that's been my experiences the past couple of years. And like I said, with like the film background, I'm really doing my best to just properly, hopefully, just get some type of footage or something, just because like it's it I feel like there's been such like momentum for something to happen that like it's like it needs to like be solidified, to like really cemented, to hopefully try and kind of possibly have this species recognized. Even if I get like some footage or something, then having like a proper scientist like come out to the field and examine these areas, hopefully being able to like just get some type of like real like proper scientific recognition of what's going on, because something's going on, and
Oh yeah.
I think it'll really just give credence to like all the people, like I mean, I guess one of my strategies for really kind of searching for these creatures comes from like John Green, where he was like just kind of like stick to like a certain area, right? Like don't go all. I feel like if I were to go to Alaska or something, I feel like I would land into like an alien world of like trying to understand. Like I don't know the terrain, but I feel like when I go out to like into like the Mid Atlantic region, like in PA and New York, like I know the forest, and I know what's supposed to be there and what's not. So just in terms of like process of elimination, I can really potentially kind of discover what may or may not be there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that reminds me of Lyle Blackburn told me once, become the person who's the expert for the weird stuff in your area, because no one else is going to do it. Greg, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We'll definitely be following along with your channel, and I'll have the link to that in the show notes. So listeners, make sure you head over there next and subscribe to Greg's channel. Check it out. There'll be a lot of them where you can see for yourself through the video what the area was like where you've heard the encounters on this show, which is pretty cool. And we'll definitely have to keep in touch with you, Greg, to see what happens in the future. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Jeremiah, like for having me so much. Yeah, with my channel, I just try and have like a first person experience of things. And like if I see Bigfoot for the first time, like I want my audience to see Bigfoot. So that's my aspiration. Hopefully one day, when I catch the image of it, like everyone will all see it at the same time, and I feel like that's like the joy of like the filmmaking.
I love that. I love that. Good stuff, man. Thank you.
All right, sir. All right. You have a good day.
Have you ever heard all the accounts of Bigfoot activity around Oak Ridge, Oregon, and you think to yourself, man, I would love to get out in those woods and experience it for myself. Well, guess what? This year you can. If this is interesting to you, stay tuned because it's pretty cool. Sasquatch Summerfest is coming up July 10th through the 11th, 2026. It's going to be even better than the previous years. Reason number one, I'll be one of the speakers. It's going to be wild. I'll say this. There may be stuff you haven't heard anywhere else because let's just say sometimes it's, you just got to be there. We'll leave it at that. More about looking for Bigfoot in the Oak Ridge Woods. Now, check this out. You may know Jason Kenzie from his documentary series, Searching for Sasquatch. Well, this year, you can not only go to the festival, but you can also sign up for a trek deep in the wild forest outside of Oak Ridge with Jason Kenzie to the Bigfoot spots to look for Bigfoot. There's only 8 spots to sign up for this. And yes, this will also be filmed for the next chapter in his documentary series, which is Searching for Sasquatch. This is a once-in-a-lifetime deal. It's just, trust me, it's going to be a wild, wild experience. To get a ticket, head on over to SasquatchSummerfest.com, and listeners can use the code BSP, like Bigfoot Society Podcast, in order to get a 2-day pass for the price of a 1-day pass. So thanks to Priscilla for giving me that code so that you guys can get a little help with the cost there. Appreciate that, Priscilla. I hope to see you at the booth in Oak Ridge this year. We can talk about your encounter. I was able to talk to so many people last year and the year before. It is an incredible time. You're not going to want to miss it, and I'll see you there. Before we wrap this episode, I want to say something directly to a very specific group of listeners. If you're in the military, any branch or forces, and if you've seen something that no one can explain, or if you're a national park ranger or forestry worker who's been told to stay quiet, or if you're a pilot who's seen something strange down on the ground, or if you're with the FBI, a federal agency, or working intelligence, and you stumbled upon something you're not allowed to talk about, and if you're a firefighter, paramedic, or search and rescue responder who's heard screams or found tracks that didn't make sense, if you're in the logging industry, on a remote oil field, or a trucker with government contracts, and you've had something happen that you've never told a soul, and if you're a biologist, a wildlife specialist, or a field researcher under contract who has found evidence you're not allowed to report, if you're a pastor, a missionary, or someone on a spiritual retreat, and you saw something that shook your faith, or if you work in the shadows, CIA, NSA, or anything with clearance, and you've seen what the public hasn't, then I want to talk to you. Even if it's anonymous, you can reach me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. The world needs to hear what you've been forced to carry alone, and you're not alone. You've got the story. We've got the mic. See you in the woods. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Every encounter we share reminds us that the world is bigger and stranger than we think, and that the truth is often hiding just beyond the tree line. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode, and share this with a friend who's into mysteries, monsters, or the unexplained. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, please follow the show there and leave us a 5-star positive review, because all that helps more people discover the show. And remember, if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot sighting, please, I'd love to hear from you. So email me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com and let's start the conversation. If you haven't gotten a chance yet, check out our membership community over at www.bigfootsocietypodcast.com. And that's where you can hear tomorrow's episode today, early and ad-free, and members-only episodes every week. Also, it's a place to connect with other people that are into the Bigfoot subject as much as you are. Thanks again for following along with the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there. And see you in the woods.